Welcome to Team Harrow. We're joined by Scott Shepard, a former Air Force PJ with multiple deployments around the globe. Now a professional pilot, Scott's journey from the battlefield to the cockpit is a testament to resilience. We'll explore how he navigated the challenges of combat and the tough decisions he faced, transitioning from the military to civilian life.
Initiate. All right, Scotty.
What's up, man?
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
I'm glad that we were able to make this happen.
Yeah.
The timing is always very serendipitous. I feel like yesterday I'm leaving here after filming, and you text me and you let me know, like, hey, man, I'm going to be in South Florida, like, just letting you know.
Yeah, what was it, Monday? You're like, hey, man, I want you on this podcast. I was like, okay, I'll see if I can get out there.
I know.
By Wednesday, Dave's mom breaks her hip, and here I am.
Thank you, Dave's mom.
Yeah, right? Shout out to Dave's mom.
Yeah, and the timing, too, because it's almost the anniversary of the fall of Afghanistan.
Yep.
We're both GWAT guys,
Yep.
and I just thought it'd be cool for you to come on here and share your adventures in Afghanistan as well. And I think also more importantly for a lot of people, like lessons learned in the transition, because that's another beast to tame, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, Afghanistan itself, Afghanistan, Iraq, that whole thing popped off. I was 10 years old when that happened. And then...
You make me feel old.
Dude, I know. Yeah, 2001, I was watching that thing from my bedroom, or from my living room at 10, go to school, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if a plane's going to hit our school next, and, fast forward 11 years, I'm on my first deployment at 21 years old in Afghanistan going, oh my God, we're still here.
Yeah.
And
so let's talk about how you got into the Air Force. Was that your first choice of
yeah,
branches?
So I grew up, in San Diego, huge Navy Marine Corps town, grew up in Oceanside, and when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Top Gun. I watched that on Laserdisc. My parents probably memorized every line just like I have by now.
I was a huge fan as well.
Dude,
I'll admit it.
Yeah.
It's probably how I ended up working in aviation.
Right? Yeah, so I always wanted to be a fighter pilot, always wanted to be a naval aviator, and then by the time I was, I think in 7th grade, my dad took me to Annapolis to check out the academy because I wanted to go to the academy. They're in Annapolis. They didn't make a shirt that was my size, so I'm just like bought one anyways. I'm walking around school like in this large, my dad's shirt basically, right? But by 8th grade, I found out like I hate school. Like I hated school. Didn't like math. Hated math more than anything. And I was like, okay, well, I probably won't be a pilot. But I can go be a SEAL, right? Because I also saw Navy SEALs, with the guy who has tiger blood. What's his name?
Charlie Sheen.
There you go. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
We have a shooter on the second floor.
Exactly. You got that big old bear just taking out, retaining walls.
That was another great movie.
We're
U.S. Navy SEAls. We're here to get you out.
Yeah, dude. I used that line before as a PJ. Air Force PJ. I'm here to save your life. Saw that. I was like, I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL. And then as time went on, you grow up, and I found out about Green Berets, and I saw the Green Beret movie, based in Vietnam. I've always been a huge war movie guy. Like when I was a kid, just always want to serve. And then so I went to a Navy recruiter initially to be a SEAL. I looked at being a Green Beret. Looking back, probably should have taken that route because I loved working with you guys more than anybody in the whole world.
I didn't pay you to say that.
No, you didn't. Green Berets have always been my favorite dudes. Like I just love them. They're my favorite. They're just dirty, just scroungy dudes that just get the job done. I love it.
Yeah.
They know how to have a good time, and they're very professional when the time needs. I just got some bad information on how to become a Green Beret, and so I was like, I don't want to be in the big army for like 5 years because that sounds terrible. So I went to the Navy recruiter to be a SEAL. The recruiter's like, hey man, you're it's a 2-year-long wait because everyone wants to be a SEAL. I was like, well, that's a long time to wait. My dad told me about PJs and combat control, and pretty much got hooked. My dad was an Air Force vet. My grandpa was an Air Force vet. So I was like, might as well keep the Air Force thing in the family. And then it came down to which one I'm going to pick, PJ or combat controller. And with my intensive research as a 17-year-old, on YouTube, I found out that the PJ selection was harder than the CCT selection at the time. So I was like, well, that one's harder. I'm going to go do that. And I took it based off those 10-week periods, right? That's how I made my decision. Like 2 videos off YouTube, I was like, that one looks harder, I'm going to go there. And so I enlisted at 17, and then graduated high school and turned 18 July, and then my first day in basic, July 21st, and then my first day in basic was August 4th. So I went the PJ route.
And what year was that?
That was 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2009, August of 2009, I went to basic. Basic's basic. Yeah.
I was going through the Q course at that time too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to basic training, and which Air Force Basic, it's Air Force Basic.
Like a country club type.
Yeah,
vibe.
kind of. You get like tea parties and stuff. It's not that bad.
Not a lot of yelling.
Not a whole lot of yelling. They talk about your feelings. It's they show you what a rifle looks like, but you don't get to touch one. Like that's what a rifle looks like. They're scary. Don't go near them.
It's behind the glass.
It's behind the glass. Yeah, it's a replica, and there's still a safety in there. Yeah. No. So I did that. Went to Indoc, and one of the good reasons I probably didn't go Green Beret is because at the time when I went through Indoc, which it was called Indoc then, it's called ANS I think now, you got through based off if you were tough and talented.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18. I was a state runner, state swimmer in high school, and I weighed 140 pounds. I couldn't ruck for shit, but I could run really fast with nothing on my back, and then I could swim really fast. But being 18, I was cocky as hell. Southern California surfer dude, grew up riding dirt bikes. I just had a big ass ego for being an 18. I had a big ego for being an 18-year-old. Yeah. So the fact that I didn't go Green Beret is probably a good thing because I probably just would have got peered out for being a cocky little turd.
You're that guy.
Yeah, I was that kid. Yeah, but I crushed it. I didn't crush Indoc. No one crushes Indoc, but I made it through just fine because I was young and strong, so I could do it. Which the maturity ended up hurting me a little bit in the future, at certain points. Nothing terrible, just older dudes looking down at you, kind of going, like big brother type stuff, right? Like, what are you doing? I remember our team leader, Travis Wilbanks, good dude, super solid operator. He put me on talking waivers like every day. He's like, you're on a talking waiver, no talking. I'm like, yeah, that's fair, because I'd just say dumb shit. Or one time we're getting smoked, right? And one of the instructors goes, hey, if one of you guys can go run down to the track and run a mile in sub 5 minutes, smoking ends. I was like, bring it on, dude. I ran a 4:28 in high school. I can do this all day. So I run down there, ran my mile, did it in like 4 minutes, or I think I did it in 5 minutes exactly, like 5 minutes .001 or something like that, right? It was crazy fast. Let's get back up. I got this big shit-eating grin on my face. Just say to my boys, like, we're going home. We're going to get dinner, right? Get a good night's sleep. That's not how any selection works ever, right? There's always some kind of thing. So even if you win, you still lose. So I get back up there, and the instructor's like, hey, you didn't do your ins and outs, right? So I don't know if you guys had to do ins and outs, but every time you show up to the schoolhouse, you have to do 50 push-ups and, like, what is it, 10 plus 3 pull-ups, something like that?
Yeah, there's stuff like that.
Yeah, so I didn't do that when I left the track at all, or when I left the schoolhouse.
Attention to detail.
Yeah, that's what they call that. Yeah. So they also call it just wrecking your life. And so I get back up and like nailed it, right? And they're like, so you just think you can walk in and out of the schoolhouse without your ins and outs? And I was like, God damn it.
That's when the heart's you're in like parade rest. You're like, shit.
Right. Yeah. Well, like, of course, my whole team at this point, it's like when the instructor's like, hey, if somebody can go do that, and everyone's like looking at me like, shut up. Like, please shut up. Don't say a word. I was like, I got it. And they're like, no, you stupid idiot. Like, you've been here for like 3 weeks already. Like,
it's funny now that you're telling these stories. I remember you. I remember
that
the guy
yeah.
from like airborne school, ranger school, all the different military schools where you're like, God damn, Scott's opening his mouth again.
Yeah, you're like, why are you talking still?
Yeah.
You dense. You're dense, dude, So, yeah, I got back and everyone's like, thanks, bro. That was awesome. I'm like, yeah. So, time goes on. You eventually mature. The guys, they beat on you enough and you're like, yeah, I get it. I'm a dipshit.
What was one of the worst smoke sessions you had during...
Man. So the land stuff got me good. Like I was really good in the water. I could hold my breath for a long time. I could swim really fast. I was really good at running, but I was 140 pounds and I was 5'11", something like that. I was tall, I was scrawny.
Yeah.
And we'd had to do duck walks for like 4 hours around the whole schoolhouse, and like carrying, boats that they filled up with water, like, our zodes, while doing the duck walk with a boat. And like, that was bad. They used to make us do like grass and gorillas, is what they called it, where you just like somersaults and log rolls through like red ant piles and stuff, at the lake. It's like December in Texas, so it's actually, Texas gets cold.
It gets surprisingly cold, right?
Dude, yeah. So we're like doing this lake swim in December in Texas with like no wetsuits. So I'm already hypothermic. Now they're having us like roll through the Texas prickly stuff and, red ant piles, and just, you have red ants all over you, and you have things sticking out of your body, and you're just like, why am I doing this again? Like, I forget why I'm here. Yeah. But yeah, so that's probably, there's quite a few pretty good smoke sessions.
When you sit there and think about it, right, you're like, oh, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one from Ranger School. The one that sticks out the most in my mind wasn't Ranger School, wasn't like IOBC, wasn't the Special Forces Qualification Corps. Like, none of that. Wasn't SUT. There's tons there.
Yeah.
But the one that sticks out in my mind the most was during West Point Prep, which was basically my post-grad year, because I was, surprise, I was a recruited athlete. So that's how I ended up going to the academy. So West Point Prep that summer, like 50% of the kids are recruited athletes. The other 50% are doing the green to gold route, right?
Okay.
So that summer they do, just to kind of level set, for us, for high school kids, it's basic training basically for like 2 weeks. And they bring in like their true drill sergeants and stuff. And a lot of the kids that coming from the military, they're kind of laughing about it because they're like, this is so easy.
Yeah.
But our, I guess, NCOIC for our company, he was basically like the first sergeant, right? And he was a Ranger Regiment guy. I'll remember his name to this day. His name was Sergeant Orloff, although he ended up commissioning, so he probably retired in the military as like a major or a colonel. But to me, he will always be Sergeant Orloff, right?
Yeah.
And Sergeant Orloff was this little stocky, your typical Ranger Regiment guy, right?
Yeah.
Always in the all black PTs.
Locked in constantly.
Yeah. He had this Tasmanian devil tattoo on his calf, and that he reminded you of the Tasmanian devil, right? And I don't know what it was, but we effed up, and everyone went outside, and we did, I kid you not, 500 some odd side straddle hops.
Oh God.
And it was just like, you got to like 100 and you're like, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, we're gonna go to 200, and you're like, that's it. And then you just keep going and going. And the only reason we stopped was somebody collapsed from like heat exhaustion.
Yeah. I remember like when I finally got through, you get through Indoc, you go to dive school, got in trouble there too.
Yeah.
Almost lost my career at dive school. You finally get to Albuquerque, where all the PJ trainees kind of live, going off to different training. And like the thing that you can kind of, that everyone there can kind of put their hat on, right? Like, a lot of guys there is like, you ever do 1,008 count bodybuilders in once? It's like, yeah, dude, you too? Like, yeah, okay, cool, you're part of the club. You're out there for 4 hours doing 1,008 count bodybuilders, and you're just like, that's a number like that you can do of anything. I can't remember the last time I did 1,000 of anything. You're like, oh my God. One time in the final phase of training, PJU, we had to go to Texas to do our dirt med type stuff, right? And so last night you're in Texas, we do what's called suit night. We go to the thrift stores. You spend like $10 on like a ridiculous suit, right? We're all dressed up like 1970s porn stars, and you go out in the Riverwalk in San Antonio and you just drink. And that night was a bummer because the next day we all get to the airport and we're like, all right, cool, everyone's here, like right on, let's go. And we're missing one dude. Well, he got drunk, got in a fight, and I guess like evaded the police by jumping through, like swimming through the river, like down the river to like, he got caught eventually. So we get back to Albuquerque, and our instructor's like, you guys are down a man. We're like, yeah, we know, he's in jail. And they're like, did you just left the guy behind? We're like, oh, okay. So like,
the lessons never stop.
Oh, dude, we got smoked for an entire day. Like, we didn't get a single water break, food break, nothing. It got to the point where like our lead instructor was so mad at us that like he just kept on wrecking us all day, to the point where like the commander finally came out and was like, hey, have these guys had like food or water in the past 24 hours? He's like, no. He's like, okay, well, they need that or they're going to die, right? And the worst part of that whole thing, the dude who caused this all to happen was still in jail in Texas. So nothing ever happened to him. He's actually a good dude. He made it through the pipeline stuff eventually. He's a good PJ, but yeah, we all got smoked, and he's just off in Texas having a little, behind the bars vacation, and we're just getting wrecked.
So once you graduate through the course and you become a PJ and you don your cherry red beret.
Yeah, the maroon beret. Yeah. Controllers have the cherry red beret.
Oh, sorry.
Scarlet beret.
Okay.
Yeah, scarlet beret. We have the maroon beret.
More importantly, to become a true PJ, you get the tattoo, right?
You do, yeah. Green feet. Oh, yeah,
exactly.
Got that one. Yeah. Got that one right here.
Yeah.
I got the green feet and the lightning bolt because I was at an STS for a little bit too. So
okay.
The lightning bolts are if you were special tactics. So I started off in rescue and then moved my way over to special tactics for a little while.
So once you graduate from the schoolhouse, how does that work?
So a PJ is a PJ is a PJ, right? So there's two different kinds of squadrons you can go to. One's rescue, one's STS, and there's differences in them, but there's a lot of similarities, right? But there's no additional training to go from one to the other. It's just a luck of the draw with paperwork, right? I always wanted to go STS only because the mission set they were doing was hanging out with you guys and SEAL teams and stuff like that a lot, which is what I really wanted to do. But I got rescue. At the time, they weren't sending a whole lot of dudes right out of the schoolhouse to the STS side. They wanted a little bit more senior dudes there, which is fair. But I still had a great time at rescue. It was a good call for me anyways. Got to learn the basic PJ skills. Got to mature a little bit because I got my beret when I was 21, right? So no 21-year-old dude in the whole world is as smart as he thinks he is, right?
Yeah,
and I was definitely part of that club.
And that's part of the reason why for obviously there's the X-ray program and the SF babies, right? And you see a lot of good and bad with that, and you hear a lot of nightmare stories about that too.
Right.
But that the seasoned SF guy and the maturity piece is why for me you don't graduate from West Point and then you say, hey, I want to go be special forces. You have to go wait to, I think it was your captain promotable. So you're basically a first lieutenant before you can put your packet in and say, hey, I want to go to selection.
Yeah. So you go off to the big army, learn how to be a real boy.
Exactly.
And then they go, okay, now we're teaching you how to be a man. Right.
So I got a funny story now that we're talking about schoolhouse, and that reminds me. So one of the 18 Deltas that on my team, who actually worked on me when I got injured, his name is Roland. So Roland is an SF baby, right? He's an 18 X-ray.
Okay.
So he's never served a day in the big army, right?
Yeah.
Just like you, young, cocky, you tell him to walk 20 miles, he'll do it. He'll run it. He'll do whatever, right?
He'll show off doing it.
Exactly. So Roland graduates the Q course, gets his 7th group, and they're like, hey, who wants to go to Afghanistan for the last couple of months of this deployment to go support some of these teams? And he's like, all right, I'll go, right?
Yeah.
So he ends up deploying and goes to Afghanistan for a couple months, comes back, and they're like, hey, the team sergeant's like, I'm going to send you to Ranger School. And he's like, all right, I'll go to Ranger School. I'll do it. Goes to Ranger School, ends up failing both of his patrols during Derby phase, which no shame, I did too. And I always joke that you don't really fully appreciate your tab unless you recycle at least a phase of Ranger School.
Yeah, A time. Yeah.
Exactly. So what happens is you fail, they bring you in, they bring everyone together the last week, whatever, and you find out officially hey, either you're being recommended to move on to the next phase or you're going to recycle. So Roland comes in and he's standing in front of a table like this, and there's the company sergeant major and that phase sergeant major and some instructor, and they're like, all right, well, Sergeant, I'm not going to use his last name, but he's like, you failed this patrol, you're a no-go on this, and you're no-go on that, and even though you're a check plus on this and you're a great guy, whatever, we recommend that you recycle. And he was standing there at parade rest, and then he kind of broke character almost, and he was like, yeah, no, I really appreciate that, and this is a great school. I learned a lot of great stuff so far, but I'm not going to do that. I need to get back to my unit because we're going to go to Afghanistan, and I got to go to Afghanistan. And he's like, they all three look at each other, and they're like, I'm sorry, what unit are you from? And he's like, I'm from 7 Special Forces Group, and like I said, when I get back, I'd love to try this again. Yeah. Totally breaking character. And they're like, all right, stud, why don't you step outside for a minute? And he's like, oh, okay, and once again,
Is it-
no understanding of military bearing.
Yeah.
Just walks outside and he's got, I'm sure he's out there with his hands in his pocket and trying to he told me, I think he's like replaying the whole conversation like, man, that was weird. Like,
Did I mess up in there?
Did I miss something? So they tell him, he's like, hey stud, come back in here. And he says he remembers to this day, I can't tell this with a straight face, he remembers to this day the BlackBerry, I think, phone that it was, that standard government phone.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, this is for you. And Roland was like, okay. And he picks up the phone, and it's our battalion sergeant major.
Uh-oh.
And he's like, hey, man, what's going on? And he's like, hey, sergeant major. And, like, right then he knew, like, oh no.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
This is...
I said the wrong words.
Yeah. And he's like, so you're not going to quit, right? And he's like, no, sergeant major, I'm not going to quit. He's like, you're going to stay there until you get your tab, right? And he's like, Roger, sergeant major, I'm going to stay here and get my tab. And he's like, all right. He's like, that's what I wanted to hear. And, he hangs up and he hands it back to the guy. And he's like, and then he's like in parade rest. And he's like, all right, now, obviously they're back in the real world. And I think one of my other teammates still has the voicemail that Roland left him because they were roommates together down in Destin of him like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I got to stay here, but I don't really want to stay here.
Dude. Yeah, I got busted at dive school. I was 18. I was 18 at dive school. It was Panama City, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It was spring break, right? So I didn't go to college. I was like, I'm living it up, right? I'm an operator, or
you're a cool guy.
Yeah, I passed selection at least. Not an operator yet. I'm in the second phase of a 3-year-long pipeline. I'm 12 weeks into a 3-year-long pipeline, and we're in dive school in Panama City, Florida, and during pool week they put you on base restriction. They're like, hey, you guys can hang out on base, party all you want, but no leaving base and being stupid, right? Spring break, we don't want you guys messing up. Keep your head in the game. Pool weeks where we lose everybody. So being 18, I know better, and got really drunk on base with some buddies, and then we snuck off base because I was seeing this chick at Hooters across the street, classy, and got caught coming back on base, and oh man, they threw the book at us. And I remember no one knew who was in trouble yet. They just knew that someone went off base, and so we all get lined up in our blues. There was marching over the dive school in our blues, and they're like, hey, we know some of you guys went off base. We already know who you are. We want to see if you have integrity. Just go ahead and step forward. I was like, all right. So me and my buddy who were there, we step forward. As I'm stepping forward, I'm in attention. I step forward, and I look at my other buddy next to me, and he sees me stepping forward, and as he's beginning to step, he goes, "Oop," and falls back. I was like, no. I just remember looking at him like, you son of a bitch, and just like step forward. I was like, oh god. Oh dude, they got me for disobeying my commanding officer's disobeying the direct order from my commanding officer, going AWOL, drinking underage, trying to evade the police. They got me for like destruction of government property because I got a sunburn. Like they threw the book at me, dude.
Oh my god.
So we have to go talk to the commander, and he's like, hey, just so you. And it was only me and one other guy who even confessed. And so he's like, hey, just so you two are aware, you're definitely out of the pipeline. Like, you're not going to be PJs ever. You're probably at the Air Force, so hopefully you have a plan. But you're definitely not going to be PJs. We were like, oh, damn it. Like,
hope you like sitting in a missile silo.
Yeah. Do you like doing this? Like at the gate? Because you might get that if you're lucky, know? The next day, so he gives us all our paperwork, and I was like, well, this sucks. I go back, start packing my bags. Next day he calls us in, he's like, hey, get out to the pool. And we were like, my buddy who's older, he's just taking the lickings. He's like, roger that, sir. And I just like looked at my buddy, I was like, for what? You kicked us out. I'm not going out to the pool. He's like, what? What did you say? I was like, you kicked us out. You're not in charge of me anymore. He's like, get out to the pool, man. I was like, all right, fine. I get out there, and he's like, put on your gear, get in the water. I was like, oh, I'm back in dive school? He's like, shut up. Just get in the water. I was like, okay.
Dude.
Just dumb.
9 lives.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I got through that one. But, yeah, did that.
So you got to the rescue squadron, right?
Yep.
And then you ended up at the special tactics squadron.
Yep. So at the rescue, I was at the rescue squadron for about 5 years. Did 4 deployments there. First one was Sicily. That was right after Benghazi happened.
Okay.
And I just remember being really upset with that one because we were in Sicily. All my buddies that I graduated with, they were all going to Afghanistan. I was like, why did they send us to Sicily, man? Like, there's nothing happening here. It ended up being pretty, it's Sicily. All the old guys, right? Like, my team sergeant, like all the older PJs, like, dude, they've been running Afghanistan for 10 years at that point. And they're like, dude, there's going to be a day in your life. You're going to look back on this deployment and go, thank God that happened. And I was like, there's never going to be that day that ever crosses my mind. Like, I hate every second of being out here. And the next deployment was to Afghanistan. And I loved it. Loved every second of it. It was great. Or loved like the first half of it. We got pretty much stood down after the first half. All operations got stood down. But it was a great time. Got to see Afghanistan. I got to hang out with the ODAs. Phenomenal time.
What year was that? Your first trip?
2014.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014. I was there. Summer of 2014. So it was big fighting season too. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they stood us down for nothing. We all got what did we get? E. coli. That was fun. Like, the Taliban just gave every American in Afghanistan E. coli. It was solid work, Like, good job. Almost got us. Just shitting your guts out and puking every day for like 3 days. It was terrible. Did Iraq. Went to Turkey. Yeah, man, it was good. And then after that, I went to the STS. And when I got to the STS, that's really where I found my calling. I was with that's where I spent a lot of time with with you guys, with the SF guys. I was maybe at my STS unit for 2 weeks, and the PJ who was initially assigned to the 5th Group CRIF got hurt somehow. Something happened to him, got hurt, and they're like, "Hey, we need a PJ." And I was like, "I'll go.
I'm your guy."
I'm like, "Tell me when, tell me where. Like, I'm in. Let's go." So I got to hang out with 5th Group CRIF for a while, and that was the first time I was like, "Oh my God, these guys are ninjas. Like, this is really awesome." The cool thing about hanging out with those guys is, like, I was still young and I was pliable, and I had some experience by that point in tactics and shooting and stuff like that. Nothing like those dudes do. And they let me go through the shoot house with them and stuff finally, and like they don't let strap hangers, they don't let enablers do that very often. But I was like building bombs, doing breaching doors. Like, it was awesome. It was great. I had a blast with those guys. We had an absolute blast. So I hung out with the 5th Group guys for a while, and then from there, just kind of bounced around a bit and continued on my merry way. My last deployment with active duty, I was in Africa. Okay. Spent most of my time there with the SEALs in Somalia, which was a good time, man. Like, I like SEALs. They're good enough dudes. They're good dudes. I just always jived well with the SF guys, man. Like, SF guys are just cool dudes. And SEALs can kind of get an ego about them sometimes, and
it's funny,
I love my SEAL guys, but
the rivalry, right?
There's a rivalry,
and there really shouldn't be it's because we all love each other and we work together, right? It's because we're all teammates in the same locker room that you bust each other's balls about stuff.
It's like a brotherly rivalry, right? Yeah. Like, me and my little brother, we butt heads on shit all the time. It's like, who's better than who?
Yeah.
And so
I was just joking with somebody about that because I'm actually headed up to Boston Labor Day weekend to play or to support the Green Beret Foundation versus the Navy SEAL Foundation lacrosse game. So it's all dudes that were Green Berets or still active duty, and as SF guys, and then all dudes that are still active duty, retired as SEALs. And it's in conjunction with the professional league. They have their first round of playoffs up at Foxborough that weekend, and I guess the game is going to be Monday during the day, I guess, maybe in between the games.
That's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be awesome.
Well, we were joking around that, it's like we're all, as SF guys, we all look like we're like gym coaches, or we teach like vocational school, right?
Yeah.
We can all tell a good story and make friends, and then all the SEALs look like they probably own CrossFit gyms.
Yeah,
like
or like they're Abercrombie models. Like that. They got like frosted tips and stuff. Perfectly groomed ears, No, I love being with my SEAL with the SEAL team out there. Some really good guys on that team. I still talk to quite a few of them today. Had a great time there. Hung with the ODA and Kenya for a bit. Had a good time there. did some stuff in Sudan. That was probably my favorite mission I ever did. Not a single shot was fired, but just the mission itself was super cool, man.
What was so cool about it?
It was just like that classic like sneaky peeky thing. Like, you know, I got the call, you know, me and my JTAC, we get the call like, hey, we need you guys in Sudan at the embassy. We're like, okay, how do we get there? Like, you got to figure that out. So we're just like, all right, let's see how you buy a plane ticket in Africa and get to Sudan, you know, which I don't even think we can get into Sudan.
Can you point Sudan on a map?
Right. Yeah. I was like, where is Sudan? Like, is that in this continent? Yeah. Like, like where? And, so yeah, we go to Sudan and they're like, hey, like, should we bring rifles, pistols, like armor, anything? They're like, nope, you need a backpack. That's it. Like, so we each brought carry-on backpacks. I remember we flew from Djibouti to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, take off from Addis to Sudan. I'm sitting in my seat, me and my buddy Ethan, we're sitting in our seats. Ethan's actually a pilot now too. He's my JTAC and now he's a refueler pilot. Great dude. We're sitting there and look in the aisle and there's a chicken in the airplane. I was like, what the?
It's like out of a movie.
Yeah. And I look back and there's like 10 more chickens like running around an airplane. I was like, yo, dude, like this is not up to FAA regulations here. Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, we're in Africa. You know, this is Africa. And so got to Sudan and meet our contacts at the embassy, and we took along some. We weren't even the mission. I was there as the medic. My buddy Ethan's there as the JTAC. Then we had a MARSOC guy who's kind of our team sergeant. He was a good dude. And then we had some other state and agency type personnel with us. And we were essentially just their chauffeurs. And driving through, we did like this, you know, must have been 12-hour day driving through Sudan, like off-roading in these, you know, up armored trucks and stuff. It was a blast. I have a pistol in my waistband. I'm wearing, you know, Chuck Taylors, a pair of like, you know, cool hiking pants and like a flannel. And, you know,
was it tactical casual?
Yep, yeah. Tactical casual. Yeah, got the watch the size of a calculator on, and my gator sunglasses totally blending in.
Yeah,
you know, sleeves rolled up, showing the tattoos. You know, like definitely everyone knows.
I'm just your average tourist.
Oh, dude, I get to the hotel and I get off the elevator, go to my room. I'm walking down the elevator or walking in the hall, and I see these like 4 dudes standing around this doorway, trying to figure out how the key works. And they're talking. They turn, they look at, and they see me. And they just stop talking. It's like 4 Middle Eastern dudes, right? Like straight Middle Eastern. And they just like look at me and stop talking. And I was like, all right. And let's just keep walking by them. They just like stared at me the entire time I walked past them because I'm blending in, right? Like in Sudan, I blend in really well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whatever. So I had a backpack full of cash because their money is useless. And my whole backpack was like full of cash. It was the equivalent of like 200 American dollars, but it was like 500,000 Sudanese dollars in my backpack. I just like emptied on my bed. I was like, I'm gonna go get food. Met my buddies downstairs. Walked back to the elevator, and I hear these like footsteps running down the hallway. And so being a nice guy, an American, I hold the elevator door. I'm like, all right, cool. There's like 3 big dudes, like Middle Eastern dudes in suits, and like they stop and stare at me. I like look at them, like, hey. I like scoot over, and they like kind of get on. Then like their principal is following him. He's this big fat like he's a big fat Middle Eastern dude, and so he kind of stops and looks at me too. He hops on the elevator, and I felt like John McClane in Die Hard, like in that elevator scene.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, this is gonna be sick, you know. And they've all got Iranian flag lapel pins on. I was like, oh.
Now you started to put it. Yeah,
together. I started to put it together. I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm outmanned and outgunned here, you know. Yeah. So I'm like, just kind of, you know, trying to hide my pistol the best I can in case they start grabbing for me. I'm like, you know, gonna go John Wick on him or something like that. And so elevator opens up, they get off, and I go to find my buddies in the lobby. I'm like, dude, you guys will never guess what just happened. I tell them the story, and my buddy Ethan goes, go check out the lobby of the hotel. And we start walking at the hotel, and there must have been 50 like North Koreans, Iranians, Russians, Chinese, like in suits with
you're like, they're all right here. Yeah. I can save the Western world right now.
Guys, I have a solution.
Yeah.
I got 15 rounds, 50 of them. We can make this work.
Yeah.
You know? Start counting bullets like a Deadpool or something like that. But
one of my buddies, he was in 10th group, and he did, I think, at least one trip to Africa, and he said kind of the same thing of like he would run into Russians like in the chow hall, and it was kind of this understood.
It's this weird like tension, but like I don't like you, you don't like me.
Yeah.
Let's just go our separate ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like we walk through this lobby, dude, and they're all wearing suits with their countries, and they're all bad guys. Like there are bad guys, and the whole lobby just silence. You could hear a pin drop. It's like 3 Americans. You know, I'm 5'10". I got tattoos and big watch, my sunglasses, my beard, long hair. My buddy Ethan, he's 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyed, tattooed. I'm like, yeah,
You're typecasting
yeah,
yourself.
This is who we are.
Yeah.
Like they looked at us almost like, yeah, we've seen you a million times. You're the guy in the movies.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you blend in? Are you sure? You know? We're like, yeah, okay. Walk outside. There's a truck with like ISIS flags driving by, and look at the Marine next to us. Like, hey man, that was a ISIS truck. He's like, yeah. We're like, should we do something about that? He's like, nope. He's like, Sudan is bad guy Switzerland. Like, it's bad guy Switzerland. This is where, like, they know we're here. We know they're here. We don't mess with each other. I was like, that's weird. I don't feel very good right now.
It's
He's like, it's
right?
fine. You'll be fine. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. So we like go get dinner and stuff. Everyone's staring at us like we're, from a different planet because they know exactly who we are. And then we do the mission, right? And we drove down. It's the first time like I got out of the truck. I'm wearing regular clothes, and like a group of 12-year-olds comes up with AKs, like pointed at us, and I was like, am I gonna smoke a kid right now? And you give them like $5, like 5 Sudanese dollars and a Snicker bar, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. And they put the guns down. They're just like hanging out with us, like, taking pictures, whatever. And like, all right, now you're like our buddies, like it was great. It was awesome. It was all sneaky peeky stuff, and nothing bad happened. It was completely, nothing of note really happened. It was just the coolest mission I ever did because of what it was, right?
My trip in 2010 to Afghanistan, that was the most memorable, and same thing where it was like my most favorite experience in Afghanistan, where obviously it was kinetic getting into that valley, but everything after that, and really like this true SF mission. And I tell people all the time when they're like, oh, what's like a really good movie that depicts like what you did? And I always say, did you ever see the movie The Three Amigos? And they're like, no. I'm like, that's basically what an SF team does. They ride to the village of Santa Poco. They have to fight El Guapo. They have to figure out on their own and get super resourceful because they're not going to get funding.
3 white guys dressed like Mexican guys.
Exactly.
It's like we're blending in.
Exactly. And it's the 3 white guys that work with this village to overthrow El Guapo, and that's kind of what you do as an SF guy.
Yeah.
And my first trip to Afghanistan in 2010, it was really that, where we didn't even have a full team because we were running split team operations. Some of us still down at Firebase Tice outside of Dehraoud in Aruzgan, and then like 7 of us up in the valley living like Afghans, like truly
eating the food.
Exactly. And that was like the most memorable. And leading into the anniversary of the fall of Afghanistan, when that all went down, and even now when I see it and people ask me about like, how do you, obviously you were in Afghanistan, like how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And it obviously sucks, right?
It does.
And it's a black eye, and I think it's a huge failure of leadership, and it should never have gone down that way. Do I lose sleep at night, or do I have issues about it? No, because I know what I was able to do and what I was able to affect in a positive manner in Afghanistan. I did.
Yeah.
And we literally cleared out this whole valley, and we saw Afghans that used to live there come back into this valley, and every day we would literally see refugees coming back up this river. And then we realized that to help, we already did the security piece. What do we need to do next in terms of nation building? As we do as SF guys, but now I'm going to apply that same concept to this little small region of Afghanistan. I need to set up the government and the commerce and help the Afghan, empower the Afghans.
Help them become a society again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we hired all the males, like, all the military age males, basically from 12 to 70
right.
that could...
Anybody could pick up a shovel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we built a road. and that road, I had to leverage USAID for the shovels and obviously all the supplies, but we ended up building this road up into the Chutu Valley and repaving the road because the Taliban had originally destroyed it and made it landlocked.
Yeah.
And from Firebase Cobra down to Tice, it was just Indian territory.
Yeah.
And once we got in there and we realized, our plan was like, they were so used to the helicopters coming in at night, hitting a target and then flying out, that the Taliban would, all right, I hear the Chinooks coming. We're going to run up into the hills because the white people with beards are going to be gone before the sun comes up like vampires.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go back into our village. And we had tried to get in there the first go around and it didn't work out. And the second go around, we realized, all right, you know what? Once we get up there, we're not leaving. And because you don't expect that.
Yep.
And it was a huge curveball to them. And once we were able to secure it, we built this road with the villagers, really. And our 18 Charlie would help whenever they got to like a corner of rock around the riverbed that we had to blow in demo.
Yeah.
Almost like mining, right? And
yeah.
he would blow it, pave this road. Like, it was almost like that computer game, The Sims, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
you're rebuilding
just
the city.
rebuilding everything. Yeah.
It was cool to see that. Like, I remember one time, me and my JTAC, we were walking from our little Afghan hut that we built down to go check out the road and the progress. And there was like roadside vendors all of a sudden in Afghanistan, like
nice,
selling candy.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, like 3 months ago, I remember we called an AC-130 to gun down some dudes on this riverbed, like right over there. And like you could still see the tree that was like totally destroyed from the, I think they shot like 3105.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely a little overkill, but we got the point across. And now like 3 months later, like it's commerce and schools are opening, and it was really cool. And it turned out to be a big success story that I got a letter from whoever it was that they came from the Joint Chief, and they said it was because it was 2010, it was during the surge. They had said that they used our ODA's success as an example, as like a vignette of success in Afghanistan during the surge, in that time period.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's the kind of stuff we should have stuck with.
Yeah.
By the time I started getting out there, with ODAs and stuff, a lot of it was like, there's bad guys, let's go kill them. And I was like, all right, I love that, But, when I was an enlisted guy, so my job is whatever I'm told to do and do that well. But I don't think about, I was also a young guy too. So I didn't think about like the big picture. Like I didn't think about the fact that we've been here since I was 10 and now I'm, legally a man, but not, mentally.
You're not thinking about the second and third order effects.
Exactly.
Right?
I'm like, hey, there's a bad guy. Let's kill him. It's like, okay, what did that do for anybody? Like, they just replaced him. Like, he's not even dead yet and he's already replaced. Like, we didn't do anything for that. Yeah, it's one of those things like, I was actually in Spain on my last deployment ever in the military. I was with the reserves. I was in Spain when that happened. And, my wife had flown out to Spain to visit me on a deployment.
It's very Air Force-esque.
Yeah, it was me and one other guy out there. We were both older dudes, both broken up. We were just busted up dudes. He was getting out soon. I was getting out soon. And so I flew up my wife for 2 weeks. She went home. He flew out his wife for 2 weeks. But yeah, my wife was out there, and we're watching. It was her birthday actually, and or close to her birthday, and we're watching this happen live on TV. And I was like it broke my heart. I was like, oh my God, I've lost so many friends. My youth. Pieces of my body. Like not like you did, but like I got scars and nicks and scratches and scrapes, and my mind's different now. And just watching all this happen, it's like, it's over.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we also killed like 13 more Marines on the way out, because why not? It's like, what did we just do? And it doesn't bug me. Like you said, I don't lose sleep over it anymore, but man, seeing the Taliban like hosting their parade and parading around all of our stuff, like, it's like, I get it. You won. You definitely, you won the war. You lost every battle, but you won the war. And when you see that, you're like, yeah, dude, what's the plan here, man? I mean, a third grader could have come up with a better exit plan than that.
Yeah. I always said, I was like, I don't think it's a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's a leadership thing.
It's a leadership thing.
And it was the current and still the current administration that failed because President Obama was in office when we started to pull back from Iraq. Democrat, right?
Yep.
So it's not like a Democrat Republican thing. It's just a poor
It's
leadership
just poor
thing.
leadership skills.
And now being in the civilian world and understanding more of civilian business and how companies are run, there's no effing company in the world where a president of the company would do something like that and not get fired.
No.
I mean
yeah. It's just blatant, terrible leadership.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to describe it. You know, it's not a Republican versus Democrat or Democrat versus Republican. There's great leaders who are Republicans. There's great leaders who are Democrats.
Absolutely.
Also bad leaders who are Democrats and bad leaders who are Republicans. You know, we just got a bad one this time, and it just didn't work out, and it cost a lot of lives, and guys like us who lost a lot of friends, lost months of our lives over there, lost relationships over there, whatever it might be. You look at that and you're like, what did I do all that for? You know, like, why are you walking around on stilts now?
Yeah.
For what reason? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
Now, you're up for a Silver Star.
I am, yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about that day.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was actually on a contract. It was weird. It's a weird thing, right? So I got back to duty after 10 years and joined the reserves. And was contracting when I wasn't, doing my reserve time. So I was overseas in Afghanistan. Me and my buddy Sam, who were both on team when we were active duty, he was also one of our JTACs. He was actually our recon guy. He's a solid dude, great. He's a damn ninja. In fact, every dude on that team was a ninja. Like, my whole last active duty team, like, those dudes are the best. I would go to war with any one of those guys at the drop of a hat. Wouldn't even need another reason why. Like, hey, Scott, I need you. We're going to go kill this guy. Like, probably a good reason for it. Let's go, Every one of those dudes is amazing. But Sam and I we're really good buddies. We did a few contracts together. We're in Afghanistan. December 11th, 2019. So I was trying to go to another outstation. I was at Bagram trying to get to another outstation. And, it's like 4:00 in the morning, something like that. Sam dropped me off at the airport and at Bagram at the base there. And we always had the scene whenever one of us dropped the other guy off, we always got coffee at the Green Bean, right? And this one time, Sam decided not to get coffee with me. He's like, dude, I'm tired. We'd already been away for like 24 we were playing video games. Because, why not? So he's like, dude, I'm just going to go back and go to sleep. I was like, sure you want to get a coffee? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, fine. So I went and got a coffee. He goes back to the other side of Bagram. And I'm sitting there, right, and in the terminal. And you know how it is, right? You see another cool guy. He's dressed kind of like you. You look at his kid. His kid's kind of like yours. You don't know exactly who he is, though. You just kind of give each other like the...
What's up?
What's up? Like, you're cool. I'm cool. What's up? Like, we're too cool to talk to each other, though, right? Yeah. And so I saw a guy like that in the terminal. The rest of the people in there, they're all conventional forces or, other, food contractors or whatever people are in there, right?
And this was like for like a ring route? Or
yeah, I was just going out to another base.
Gotcha.
For like a week. And like another fob. And so this guy that I saw, he was the only guy that like caught my eye, right? It's like, okay, I don't know why. Good looking guy maybe, I don't know. He had solid, he had a cool kid. I was like, oh, I wonder what he's doing over there. And then out of nowhere, just this boom happens, right? And just the ceiling collapses and we all get on the, I'm like, what the hell was that? I was actually listening to music. I'm like sitting around looking at, see everybody drop on the floor. And I was like, ow, like that kind of hurt. And so once I kind of figure out what's going on, and I hear this like more boom, boom. I was like, oh, okay. Because I thought it was just another base, like IDF attack,
yeah.
Right? Like, they're nothing. If the first one doesn't get you, you're probably fine. And so then we start hearing this belt fed just crack, 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 crack. I was like, uh-oh. Starts hitting the building we're in. And so I stand up, throw my kid on as fast as I can. I had my little med fag bag with me and my helmet. I throw those on, and I see this obvious cool guy start doing the same thing. We both don't know who each other are. Like, everyone outside, go, 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 right? Like, everyone get outside right now. Because outside there's like a little security checkpoint with like retaining walls and stuff you can kind of hide behind. We get outside and immediately realize that was maybe not the best decision. But the inside of the building is like, it's bad in there, right? Can't go in there. So we're getting, me and this dude are like checking on everybody, make sure everybody's okay. I'm going around with my med bag. Mind you, I don't have a gun at this point. My gun's somewhere else. And so I'm just like, I started this belt fed going off. It's getting close. And I just yelled at one of the Garda World or whatever they are, gate guard guys, right? I'm like, hey, someone give me a fucking gun right now. This guy goes, here you go. And he hands me a Beretta M9. I was like,
it's not what I was expecting, but okay.
So I have a Glock holster. I'm like, because I had my gun belt on. I have a Glock holster. I'm like, all right, shove it in there as like the best I can, right? Just a retention holster. Like, hey, you got another mag? He's like, yeah, here you go. So he gives me another mag. And let me back up. So Cody and I are checking on everybody. And so the guy's name ends up being Cody, right? He's a SF guy from first group.
Okay.
Super solid dude. He's the Bravo. Really, really good dude. And he goes, everyone wait here. If you have a gun, aim at that direction. I'm going inside to look for survivors. And I stand up. I was like, hey, I'm coming with you. And I have, the PJ patch on my helmet. He goes, PJ? I was like, yep. He goes, let's go. I was like, yes. Like, this guy probably had good experience with PJs. That's good. Like, I'm in. Because it can be iffy sometimes. So he and I go in, and we're, clearing this building, right? And because we didn't know where the explosions came from. Like, it was close. And so he's got his gun up, and we're doing CQB, just the two of us. We never worked together. I didn't even know his name yet. And or at one point, we're about to open a door. He goes, I go up to squeeze him. He looks back at me, and I have my knife out, just like a knife. And he goes, hey, man, get your gun. I was like, I ain't got one. He's like, oh okay. I was like, don't worry, I got you. He's like, fuck. Yeah. I hope you do.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do, but sure. And so we clear the first build, the airport. Everything's fine. Go outside. I finally get a gun from somebody. Then Cody and I just start going around clearing everything. Built a CCP. Recovered people from different sections of the base that were like kind of torn apart and shredded and trashed. Ran everything through CCP. I found some doctors, found some nurses, found some paramedics. I was like, hey, I need you guys to run the CCP because I got to go back out and find more people. Right? And there's still a gunfight going on, and Cody and I are like, but the gunfight's about 200 meters away. And, all Cody and I have is at this point, he has a Glock and I got a Beretta. And we're like...
So it was a breach?
It was a breach, yeah. So they did a 2,500 pound V-bid to breach
into the wall?
Into the wall, to breach the gate, is what we found out. And what collapsed on the roof was like the engine block from the truck it was in. Yeah. And then there's there's pieces of truck on the flight line, like a couple C-130s had holes in them from just pieces of car. And so he and I are doing all this stuff, right? And eventually we kind of find like, all right, everyone's secure. We got a good head count. We put probably 500 people through the CCP. Ended up not doing a whole lot of medicine. One kid, he was an Air Force cop. He was in the gym. A piece of shrapnel hit him in the leg. Cody and I came across him and, put a tourniquet on. Definitely need a tourniquet, but Cody was like, hey, man, let's do a tourniquet. I was like, you know what? Let's just do a tourniquet. Like, I can afford to lose one of these. If it is bad, I'm just not seeing it. Like, I've got other shit to do anyways. Tourniquet, get him a CCP, have the docs look at him, right? The tourniquet will be off in 15 minutes. So we start doing our thing. Eventually we make our way up to the gunfight where the conventional infantry, Marines, and Army are up there kind of holding them off, right? But not really doing anything because they're conventional dudes. It's a base attack. Like, nothing bad against conventional guys. It's just that's not what they train for typically, right? Especially like that late in the war. It's 2019. Conventional guys hadn't really. They were having color runs and like Christmas marathons and stuff around the base. Like, it wasn't really combat anymore over there. And so everyone's kind of shocked, and Cody and I just kind of took charge, man. And a section of the infantry cats, they were running low on their belt fed, and no one knew how to get them ammo. And it was about 50 yards or so just of open space. Like it was a parking lot, like an actual parking lot. And they were kind of behind like one of those T barriers. And so they're like, hey, like our guys over there, they're starting to run out of ammo, but we can't get to them. And so Cody and I were like, do you have ammo for them? They go, yeah. We're like, where, give us, is it in cans? They're like, yeah. So like, here, we'll take it to them. They're like, you're going to run over there? Like, yeah. Like, it's just right there. They're like, they're shooting at you. I'm like, I run pretty fast. And so we ended up doing like 2 or 3 trips back and forth, just carrying ammo cans, like, 7.62, 5.56 ammo cans back and forth. They're heavy as hell. And just running back and forth and dropping ammo cans and coming back. And every time we came back, the guys were like, what are you doing back here? Like, thanks.
Yeah. While the rounds are still cracking over your head.
The rounds are still cracking off. When we were initially looking for the gunfight, we couldn't tell where it was. They had held themselves up in this building. So Cody and I are kind of like, where is this happening, right? And so we're standing kind of out in the open and like, I hear gunshots. I just don't know where it's at. And just out of nowhere, just bang, bang, bang. Like this rack of belt fed scrapes across the back of our head. And I kid you not, it hit like here between me and Cody, and like right back here behind his head, and kept on going. We both just looked at each other, like found it, just ducked down, like, I think it's over there, right?
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like and subscribe, and don't miss part 2 coming soon. See you next time on Team Harrow.